here and it. So I did want to just say, how do you like my new office bookshelves? So I haven't got the, mostly I'm clearing up all the papers that are in boxes before I get to the joy of putting my books on my new bookshelves. I thought actually I would start with something from my couple pieces from my forthcoming book, which will be out at the beginning of the new year. And we'll see where that goes. So the Goldilocks range, some of you know, is it's defined as what they call the range of temperature that allows for life, as we know it anyway. So it's called the more specific definition is the Goldilocks range is the range of temperature within which life evolved on Earth, also known as the range of habitation or range of life. And so this poem is from the early part of my forthcoming book. This book that's going to be coming out, it centers around the ramifications of climate change. And so this first piece is called The Range of Eden. Once we were earth, was beautiful, was water, flowers under sea, in forest even here, blossom and bee, all shaped in lovely flit and suck and honey, and languid limbed we brought forth and died back and lived again in the long line of mother to mother, earth to seed to flame of spring. In balance did we, in balance and beauty, sweet of windfall fruit, smell of damp ground, glimmer of wet leaf, even the smallest intricate interweaving, returning to begin again a sacred fractal world, the raindrop caught on the iridescent web in the woods before the angle of the light changed. We were happily motes on spears of sun in the morning of it all. We were blossom and bee and shaped in love and dancing. We were earth and tree and sky and sea and drifted all unknowing in the Goldilocks zone of Eden. I'm thinking back, Larry and I were just talking about how far back the universe goes, at 13.4 billion years, and then we have the evolution of all these life forms. And I've always been interested in the Pleistocene. So maybe it was last autumn. Yeah, I was just puttering along doing something in the house, and I had been thinking about the earliest musical instruments that have been found, which are flutes made of probably some of you know all about this, but the bones of animals that have been made into flutes. And interestingly, those flutes are all the pentatonic scale. So this one of the flutes is made of the wing bone of a swan. So I had been thinking about that, and then I had some glimmering I think I said the bones of birds being hollow. And I heard this in my mind for obvious reasons. So then I thought I better write this down. You know, the poems begin so many different ways, but this is one way poems begin for me. So if I don't write it down, it's gone and it will not come back. So I came into the study and I sat down at the desk to write those three lines, the bones of birds being hollow for obvious reasons. And the line breaks were just because that's how the poem unfolded in my mind. It unfolded with the bones of birds being hollow was two separate thoughts, the bones of birds being hollow for obvious reasons. And as I was writing it down, the birch tree outside the window there was covered with yellow leaves, and it was a kind of a dim autumn day, but these yellow leaves on the birch tree were incredibly luminous. And every time a little breeze would come past that side of the house, whoo, some of those leaves would flutter down. And that was happening as I wrote these lines. And so here's the poem. Swan bone. The bones of birds being hollow for obvious reasons. It might be obvious also why the first flutes, found thousands of years after the pentatonic melodies they played in the lives of Homo sapien Neanderthalensis and Homo sapien sapiens, perhaps while dancing, perhaps while there was chanting around them, perhaps while the dancers moved in circles, perhaps while someone else shook a rattle and someone struck a drum, and a boy in the circle of dancers looked up to a cloud of swans traversing the autumn, their hollow wing bones lifting and falling above a swirl of yellow leaves that smoked the sky with gold. And those birch leaves falling. I can't wait for it to happen again. It's so magical. And there's something about the Goldilocks range, was beautiful. Once we was beautiful. And then we had that period of time where the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens sapiens, and that overlap about, how would we say, 40,000 years ago, I think. How different the world was then from where we are now. What a kind of, we've made a mess with all of the beauty that is here, and that we have created also. We've made a mess. So I had chosen, I've been thinking about how easy it is to get used to violence. And I see that on the national and global level, where people can get used to domestic violence. You get used to the people arguing next door, pretty soon you don't really think about what that might mean. And so making a grand leap to the war in the Ukraine, there's a certain level of kind of acceptance now. The war goes on, right? So I wrote this poem, A Woman Lies Still. I start with the weeds I know will seed first and tug them up from thick spring ground. while 6,000 miles on the other side of the earth, a woman drops and flattens herself against mud and melting snow in a ditch at the side of the road. I turn my ear to the ground, as if I could hear the war that keeps her pressed to the ditch. The hood of her prettiest parka with the white faux fur trim settles to the mud, and she doesn't stir. For hours, she lies on the cold, her suitcase spilled open beside her, listening to the roar and whine of rockets and bullets. The hawk calling all morning is suddenly silent, and I go in. Peace is a quiet presence in my kitchen. Only the light has changed. I originally, when I first began working on the poem, which, probably went through, I don't know, 7 drafts or something to get where it is. So I originally titled it, I Lie Down with My Twin. And I sent it to a friend, and then I sent later the revision, and she told me she liked the first one better. I don't know if she meant the whole poem. There are a lot of subtle changes in the poem some of them are quite subtle, but the main, the most obvious thing was the title, that I had changed the title. And so maybe when we get to the part where you guys get to talk a little bit, you could tell me what you think about that. So 10:14, all right, we're doing great. I'll change it up here a little bit and do a poem I wasn't sure I would do. For fun, called The Soul Speaks. If I can find it here in my little stack. That's going to be later. I've got a couple here for later. Here it is. Maybe before I read that, Larry was kind enough to send out a poem I wrote that those of you that go to Larry, have Larry's poems sent to you, you may remember this one. It's called Winter Pilgrims. And since I'm talking about the Ukraine a little bit, I'll read this. It's a bit long, so I hope you can kind of hang in with me. I ran across some writing about theater in Eastern Europe, theater in Poland, post-World War II, the emergence of modern theater in Eastern Europe. And there were gatherings of people from various places in Europe that came to these events, at least one that I read about. And they were interested in the idea of movement, the connection between the body and the body's movement and authenticity. And they were really preoccupied with the idea of theater as a form of authentic communal activity. It was a complicated idea. I read all these papers because I just ran across them in a house we were staying in New Mexico. And there was a library there. I ran across these papers. But one of the talks was by a fellow named Ronald Grimes, who said, the form of a pilgrimage is makeshift. And I love that idea. The form of a pilgrimage is makeshift. So that is underlying the title, Winter Pilgrims. First were the boats, rafts, dories, even an inner tube in the Mediterranean. A boy washed up face down in Greece. Innumerable rescues and many too late, bodies floating like fallen feathers. The diaspora of the 21st century begins to jumble. Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Afghanistan, Nigeria. They come in waves over land and water. I wanted to write about them, the refugees, though no one wants to call them that. Refugees have rights. Migrants are flightless birds, spoiled fruit, parts of broken promises. Pressed between countries, between civil collapse and the loss of arable land. I saw them on the television in the Nissan sales and service lobby with the sound off. Thousands gathered in the winter woods with their meager consolation of thin jackets and small fires and thin blue tents. The same blue tents we see along our freeways where P2P meth users huddle against the sear of uselessness, discarded lives in blue tents everywhere, here and there in the winter woods, without food, with snow the only water. I saw them on the TV with the sound off. Tired of waiting, my car still not ready, I walked through November's dusk to the closest coffee shop, a Starbucks, as the tipped cup of the moon came up above the neon strip of Auto Row. There she is, I thought, the silver lady, pouring her light on the busy street, on the blue tents by the overpass, and on him, the boy with the animal ears cap I'd seen on TV, in his father's arms, facing a wall of razor wire. I wanted to write about them, to report from one human to another about those people in the forest. An infant who died of exposure is buried there, and a Syrian man who drowned in the border river. There were others too. The silver lady spilled her cup on their graves. Days later, her light floods the woods, floods over the snow stained by their pilgrimage, and over the abandoned debris, the residue of their defeat, evidence of their presence and their departure. Could you say, in a manner of speaking from the heart, that now those woods are a makeshift sacred ground? I wanted to write about them, our brothers and sisters seeking milk and honey, or just a job and a plate of crappy food and a safe place to sleep, or just to get out of the killing cold. I wanted to write about the blue tents, to say those people matter. I wanted to mark the time and place, mine walking to Starbucks and theirs on the border of Poland and Belarus. On the border of Poland and Belarus, and in the no man's land beside the freeway. I wanted to write about them. Here is a strange thing to not have the last page of the poem. I wanted to write about them. I'll makeshift it, to say they matter, to say they are us. We haven't recognized ourselves. So, third page, 3 lines on the third page of the poem. That was right. You know, that was what, 3 months before Russia moved into Ukraine. I'll change that. pace here a little bit with another poem. This is the one, The Soul Speaks. I am the heart of the hummingbird in a dream of feathers. I am the little blue flower you missed in the woods. I am the snow that briefly hushed the traffic, the slight stirring of leaves in a forest where no one goes, where you went once, long ago. I am the quiet place you left for the clamor of voices, the one you passed on your way to the party and did not recognize. I am the one who waited when you did not come. I am the child you struck when you lost your patience. I am the tears you will not cry and the one who weeps for your desolation. I am the one you seek when you're alone. I am the door you rolled the stone across, the dark you lit the lamp against. I am the rain that wet your face. I am the whisper you almost heard. I am the path you lost, the turn you missed, the hope it's not too late. I'm going to read one more poem here because I see we're going to be out of time for any kind of conversation if I don't stop. So, and I wanted to say something about the Being Brave Poetry Project, which is my project as poet laureate. So I'll just close the poetry with this, the Tao of Trust. We go down into the deep river of the unknown self to find the underside, surfacing slick with mud, fists clenched around small stones that glow in the dark. And I'll read that one again, as Bly used to do. I think he was the one who really gave that to us, that read it again, read it again. The Tao of Trust. We go down into the deep river of the unknown self to find the underside, surfacing slick with mud, fists clenched around small stones that glow in the dark. So just briefly, as poet laureate, I decided, or my decision was to do this project, not just for poets, but for anyone who is interested in the idea of exploring what it means to be brave in our time. What does it mean to be brave as we look around at this world? As we look around at the wars, as we look around at what's happening to the climate, as we look at our own families where there's I have in my own family deep divisions around politics, and what would happen, or then on a very personal level, what does it mean to be brave enough to admit a mistake, or to apologize, or to tell the truth? So the Being Brave Poetry Project is an embrace of all of it. And what I wanted to do was to take that invitation to find language for what being brave or living with courage means to you in your own life, in your own moment. And to do that, the model is a workshop model where I agree to come wherever I'm invited to work in a block of roughly 3 hours to talk a little bit about the project, give a couple of examples, and then invite people to write with maybe some small prompts just to get people going. And then take time to share in small groups if the group is large. So groups of 4 or 5 people could share what they came up with, and from there then we talk a little bit about what are we learning about each other and what are the values that seem to be important when we think about, because courage comes from the heart, you know, core, right? The heart. And so if we speak from the heart about what we care about, what we're afraid of, what we're hesitant about, what we want to have the strength to confront and to live with consciously, what do we come up with? And that's the idea of the project, that it would give us a way to dialogue, all of us, and reaching out to every part of the county, to not leave out any of the communities, no matter how far flung they may be. So that's the idea of the project. And I have been invited by several, couple of small groups, a couple of larger organizations that are like the Santa Rosa Unitarian Church. They're talking to their board about bringing the project there. And also I'm thinking about doing a small gathering at the North Bay Letterpress Arts, that group down there at IOTA. And so if any of you are, and also I have a little list of names of people just from that don't have a group that they're with, but would like to participate in one of these workshops, so that I can gather the workshop from disparate folks who just are interested. So I think that's enough said, and I realize I haven't left time. So those of you that have to scoot off, but if any of you would like to just take a few minutes maybe, and then Larry, I've cut right into your closing time. Why don't you make your announcement before we see who might want to talk, so that people who have to go will know what's coming next. Okay.
Well, first, Elizabeth, I want to say how absolutely wonderful this has been, and how moved your poems, how moved I am by your poems. Brought me to tears several times.
Oh,
so I'm just a quick announcement. October 1st, our guest reader will be Ed Coletti, whom I think many of you know. And if you don't, you're in for a treat. So if you're on my Poetry Lovers email list, you'll get the announcement and link to that. So I'm going to also now turn it over back to you, Elizabeth, to open it up for any conversation that you wish.
Thank you, Larry. It's a wonderful opportunity to share my work. So thank you so much. I don't know if some of you might have questions or comments. I welcome them. Hi, is that you, Steve?
Steve, you're muted.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Steve, you press the space bar, you'll that's a quick way to unmute. Oh.
Oh. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm missing all that. Steve, can you hear me?
Can you press the space bar on your keyboard? Oh, okay.
Oh. But we can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Roberta?
Oh. Is everybody on mute somehow, Larry?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you again and hear you. Really enjoy your voice as much as I enjoy your words. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at our workshop here in Burbank Heights and Orchards.
On the 14th, I think, right?
Yeah, 14th of November. All good. So I'm encouraged to write I don't write poetry very often, but I'm working at it. And so I have written a couple of novels. One, my autobiography, and fiction also running through it. But I love hearing the depth of your words and how they register in my body is very wonderful. It's like an opening. It's like a little blossom that opens and or a stream that's been not running. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's lovely to hear. Yeah.
thank you.
Steve,
Oh,
The host, you couldn't be heard because the host had us muted and you weren't able to unmute yourself.
my mea culpa.
So
well,
anyway,
how about now, Steve?
yeah, I'm curious if these workshops will all be in person or will any of them be online?
You know, people have been asking me that, and I am aware that's an issue because COVID is still running rampant. I had initially, I thought, oh, I don't think I could ever do this on Zoom. I think it's too, I depend so much on the whole body language and my intuition when I'm working with a small group. It's a very finely tuned process for me. So but I don't know. I mean, I suppose I could try it, you know, as a Zoom and maybe get some tips from Larry on how to do that.
Well, I'm flattered that you would even consider viewing my body language. Elizabeth is going to be reading on October 25th with Poetic License Sonoma, which is in conjunction with the Sebastopol Center for the Arts. So that will be a Zoom reading, just to get a plug in.
I'm looking forward to it, Steve.
I am too. And I am absolutely amazed at your ability to weed your book collection. Look at those empty shelves behind you. She's been trying to get organized with her books and wall space.
Yeah, it's hard going through all the papers, and you know, there's so much crap. I've been filling bags for recycle and stuff just to finally get to the point where I can put the books in the shelves in some sort of order. It's funny, you know, I've been aware lately, this is a tangent, but kind of aware that my process for trying to figure out how to organize the office is not that dissimilar to the process of writing a poem, in that I have to, you know, I kind of putter around. I look like I'm not doing anything. I'm just doing housework, for instance. But in my mind, it's like because when I do physical work, it's like a meditation. So I'm aware of my thoughts, and I've been aware of the very slowly unfolding sense of how to reorganize things. It's not that easy for me because I'm intuitive. I'm not by nature a kind of 1 + 1 = 2. That's, you know, I might say 1 + 1 = 5.
Elizabeth, there's in chat, which you may not be able to see, Deborah Taylor has a question. Where can we find this project? Does the library have your project listed and updates? We need to be able to find you.
Oh. I never thought about the library as a place, but if you, gosh, what would be the easiest way? If you just Google Elizabeth Herron, well, or just Elizabeth Herron, I think it's www.elizabeth-herron.com, or I haven't been able to update my Authors Guild website for some reason. When I update it lately, the updates don't show up when I go back to see. So if you go to the .com, Elizabeth Herron.com. Then on the events page, a description of the project is right there. So that's probably the best way to start with. And then maybe I need to figure out, Steve, you might have some ideas, or any of you that have ideas on how to publicize it. Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you haven't picked up a copy of the Gazette this month, Jonah Raskin interviewed me for an article in the Gazette, and I'm very happy with it because he did talk about, what really mattered to me, how I got to where I am with my work. It's a nice interview. But anyway,
Fran, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah,
I did.
hi, Fran.
Hi. I was going to ask the same thing. How can we get in touch with you? Because we have two groups here that can meld and make one group for you to come and work with us in a workshop.
Right, I would love that.
For that, I want to say thank you for this beautiful, beautiful reading today. That was just inspiring and wonderful. But we want more. We want the workshop. So I think you've answered that question.
Oh, that's very sweet. I just thought, of course, the most obvious thing is to email me, and that my email's not that hard right now because it's socopoetlaureate@gmail.com.
Okay.
And if any of you didn't get that, send me, if you have my email, send me a message and I can connect you with Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we probably need to
wrap
say
it up.
goodbye. So thank you again so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for your wonderful attention.
Very nice to have this experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Oh, and
Thank
I
you.
forgot, if I have recorded this, so if any of you would like a copy of the recording, send me a message and I will send you the link to that.
Thank you, Larry.